Welcome to the Just As We Are podcast. I'm Katrina Lelly, certified life coach, aspiring author, lover of people, mama in recovery, and student of life. Each week, I will bring you love, inspiration, the real life stuff people are afraid to talk about, and guests who are willing to shine their light for you. I give you self-care practices and mindset tips to help you shatter the negative stories you tell yourself. Now is the time to step into the beautiful, loved, whole woman you already are. Let's walk this journey together. Hello, welcome back to the Just As We Are podcast. I'm your host, Katrina Lelly, and you guys, I am here with such a flippin' bright light of joy. My friend Ati Grinspun is a personal branding photographer and side hustle coach. As a former flair bartender living a life in autopilot, she is absolutely passionate about inspiring and helping other women get out of autopilot, live their best life by feeling and being healthy, bringing in more money so they can do more of what makes them happy. And oh my goodness, from the moment we met, there were sparks flying and excitement and love and so much fun. We met through a mutual, our coach, Kayla Kraft, and we got to meet in person a couple months ago at the Mommy Millionaire Live event. And I was just so excited to see you. Welcome. Thank you so much for being here with me today, Ati.
Hello, how are you?
So amazing. Oh my gosh. I just love being in your space. And anytime I can, I'm going to take that opportunity and I just grab onto it because you are such a ball of beautiful fire and your energy you can't help but be pulled in by it. And I love that about you.
Thank you. I love that. I love being around you too. I love being around powerful women that they want more and they're going after it.
Yes. I mean, like I shared the other day, like it is so important to surround yourself with the women who are doing things, and you have to be very intentional about those people. And you are a person that I know I am very intentional about, and one of those women who is just amazing. And, anybody who gets to be in your space is absolutely blessed in some way.
Thank you.
There's no way they could walk away feeling the same they did when they came in.
Did you see how I stole your post?
Yes, I did. I love that.
I was so inspired. I was like, oh my God, I love that. I want to share the same feeling.
No, I loved that. I loved it so much. So, Ati, tell us a little bit more about yourself, where you're from, family, that type of thing.
So I'm originally from Argentina. I live now in Las Vegas, Nevada. I have been married to my husband since 2012. Actually, our anniversary is coming up on December 21st. I have a 7-year-old son, and let me see, what else? I used to live in Spain before living in the US. But my mom says that I was saying that I was going to live in the US since I was 4 years old, even though I don't remember. But she says I kept saying that.
See, even as young kids, we can put out what we want into the universe and it comes. We start manifesting our dreams when we're so young. How old were you when you moved to the US?
So I was about 22, 23.
Okay. And how was that
young?
How was that transition for you at that age?
So I'll tell you a little bit about it. And please interrupt me because I tend to blurb about this story because there is so many years in between. So you can be like, okay, stop now.
Gotcha.
So I first left Argentina. I used to go to school for hotel management. And there was a teacher that came into the school and he used to flip bottles. He was a bartender. He was teaching a mixology class, but his métier, his specialty was to do shows with the bottles. And since the time I saw that, I was like, oh my God, I want to do that. How cool. And I remember I kind of ditched school and I ended up going bartending, which in Argentina is not like a great job, to be honest. It's like a kind of like a crappy job. But I ended up getting a job at T-Shape Fridays and eventually getting involved with this whole flair bartending world, right? That it was like flipping bottles, doing shows, making drinks at the same time. And one day I was working at a bartending school that was actually, I was one of the partners there. And somebody was like, hey, there is this guy speaking English, like trying to look for you. And I'm like, well, it has to be a joke. And they're like, no, it's not a joke. Because I was the only person that spoke English. And this guy from the Fleur Bartending Association was looking for a translator to go give a class in Mexico.
Interesting.
I know, right? And a week later, I was in Mexico with all these Fleur bartenders, like literally. Like, I think maybe like a week, 2 weeks or a month. I don't know. This was like 20 something years ago. But when I met them, that's kind of how my whole circle started opening up. But I understood that people actually made a lot of money bartending here, or a lot of money compared to what my future was looking like for me in Argentina, right?
Mm-hmm.
But also I was so passionate about what I was doing at the time that I was like, oh my God, this is what I want to do. And I want to do competitions and I want to be on stage. And I don't know, I just loved it. So a few months after that, I ended up moving to Spain because I had a friend that was in Spain, and I went and did a few summer seasons there. And it was my first, like, I'm going to travel the world kind of deal. And then eventually I ended up coming to the US to compete. And that's how the doors kind of started opening.
Oh, that's awesome. I love that story. And I was just thinking as you were sharing, okay, you talked about since you were 4 years old that you're going to live in the US. And then, you talk about you want to do this bartend. Like, you're such a manifester. It's so amazing. Like, you're so powerful already. Anything everything you're doing now and anything you do forward, I know is just going to come to fruition for you. It's so awesome.
Oh, yeah, it's so awesome. And when I look back, I actually find a lot of similarities, which is crazy.
That's beautiful. That's so beautiful. So I want you to share a little bit about your journey as a mom, in also just the journey with coinciding with your entrepreneurship, because you were a bartender and now you're a photographer and a side hustle coach. So share what that journey's been like, because I know that there's a lot of women out there who are currently in that space, who are maybe just starting out, are in the midst of it, or, they've got some success under them. Or there's also those moms that are like, I know I want to do something. I just don't know what in the world that is.
Oh my God, Katrina, this is like my most loved message. And I'm going to tell you why. Because I tried entrepreneurship before, and I'm going to tell you a story in a minute. However, I think the reason why it's so important is because the biggest lesson, and I'm going to start with the end in mind, is understanding that through failure or through finding what doesn't work is how we find what does work. And that has been at least my lesson or my blessing, like I like to call it. And okay, so I'm going to back up several years. Okay. So I ended up getting a job in Las Vegas. It wasn't easy. I became a floor bartender. It took me I always say it took me about 5 years to get good. And then, all the training that came with it. But then I got a job in Vegas, honestly, by chance. I came to Las Vegas to compete at a competition, a floor bartending competition. And I went with a few friends to a casino for them to audition for a job. When we get there was this panel, and a lot of the people knew me, and they're like, oh, you should audition too. And I'm like, well, I don't even have papers to work in the US. Like, I can't. And they're like, well, just flair for us, like they're like clapping, whatever. And I go, I do the audition, but I wasn't expecting absolutely anything out of it. And at the end, this guy approaches me. He's like, hey, my name is so-and-so. I'm the vice president of this casino, which was, it is still Harrah's at the time because the bar is still open. He's like, would you consider a job offer? I was like, what? And the reason why I'm telling this is because at the time, I'm not gonna lie, it was hard. I didn't have papers. I was kind of like, I did not want to go back home. I wanted to work as a flair bartender. In Argentina, flair bartenders don't make any money. It wasn't even an option. If I went home, I either went back and go to school or I had to get some sort of job. And I was so passionate about this and I wanted to stay here. So when this happened, like it was shocking. So literally I went through the process. I ended up getting a job in Vegas. And that was the job that I was at until December last year.
Okay? December of last year. Okay.
Yes. So the reason why I told you all that story is because I want you to kind of like understand, like throughout those 16 years of working a job that in a moment in time was my dream job, we change, we grow, things happen. So the first 10 years of that job, I started in 2003 until, not even the first 10 years, until 2011, Katrina, they were freaking awesome. I made so much money. I traveled all over the world because I was competing. A lot of those trips were even paid by my employer. Like they were amazing. Like, you know, I was single in a relationship, but we were not married. We both were flair bartenders. It was awesome. I was making all this cash, right? And then in 2011, life changed. I'm going to tell you really quick the story. This guy walks into the bar. He tips us a huge amount of money, part of the money with a credit card, part of the money in cash. About 3 or 4 days later, we're called and we're told that whatever credit cards he used to pay with, they were fraud.
Oh,
and that because the guy spoke Spanish, by the way, I didn't know the guy. He just happened to be Latino. He spoke Spanish, I spoke Spanish, and it happened to be that the other bartender that took care of him spoke Spanish too. They thought that we were all involved in whatever fraud he was doing.
Wow. Oh my goodness.
This magnificent, amazing job where I was brought from Argentina, where I felt absolutely secure and I felt I was untouchable. Okay. 2 minutes, literally, not even 2 minutes, one shift, it was gone.
That's really all it takes, right? It can change in a just like that.
And that's why I'm so passionate about helping people with a side hustle and helping people have a plan B, because we cannot go through life holding on to the safety net. And that safety net, when we are growing up and we're kids or parents, but as we grow up, is a job. So it's okay. Like you can have a job and you can have an amazing job and an amazing career, but what is your plan B just in case? What is your plan B for when something happens or life throws you a curveball?
Yeah. It's interesting that you call the job a safety net because it's not really any safer than anything else.
It's not. Actually, I don't think it's safe at all because all the decisions are made by somebody else.
Yes. I mean, that's what we're brought up to believe, and that's how the society is today. But really, how many times do we hear normally that people are suddenly laid off or a company closes or something happens?
So about 2 weeks later, after I was pregnant, I found out I just gave it away. After 2 weeks later, after I got fired, I found out that I was pregnant. Now my life was like, what? Like, and this was a very planned baby, but honestly, we only were planning for like a few weeks. So I didn't think that was going to happen. I did not think I was going to get fired. So my life literally turned upside down. Now, let's go back a few years earlier because I was traveling and we were doing all these things. And honestly, I kind of like wanted to have a plan B, but it wasn't really strong, that feeling. I knew that I was not going to be bartending for the rest of my life. Just put it that way. After a conversation that I had with my dad, and I was like, well, no, I'm not going to be bartending for the rest of my life. And he was like, well, think about it. Like, at some point you're going to want to have kids, or maybe, you get old or whatever. And I was like, oh, I never thought of that. And I started taking classes at a community college for photography, and I fell in love with it. So even though I did not have a business around it, I already, I was shooting some of my friends and I was like doing things here and there. So when all this happened, I was like, well, I know how to take pictures. And I pursued it as a business. And I spent a lot of money opening an actual brick and mortar. And I had a physical studio. And I'm not going to lie, it was freaking hard. I was pregnant. So I was growing a human inside my body. But on top of that, I was growing a business from zero with zero experience in business, in an entrepreneurship. I never had another job that wasn't bartending. And I was like, okay, what am I doing? And to be honest, I was pretty successful, but my numbers weren't there. I had a lot of overhead. So it was a challenge. But also, I feel like because I was just let go of my job, a lot had to do with my ego, and I was very wounded. My self-confidence wasn't there because I was just let go of my job that I felt like was impossible to let go. And then I go into a business where everything has to do with my creation, my art, my knowledge, and my worth. So then my son is born in August 2012, and I have a horror postpartum depression. It was so freaking hard because I feel like it was the whole thing was coming together too. The self-worth, the loss of the job, and my son, and like I had this little baby, this little business. So I don't know if you know, but here in Vegas, a lot of the casinos are union. Okay, so yeah,
I didn't know that. That's interesting.
Yeah. So when I got fired, I actually did file for an arbitration. I went there a few times, we had to have these talks, whatever. I totally forgot about it. 23 months go by. Okay. My kid is 18 months at the time. And I get a call from my union rep. And the guy is like, I have really good news for you. And I'm like, yeah, what's up? And he's like, well, you got your job back. You won the arbitration. But in order for you to get back pay, you need to take your job. And I'm in a crossroads because, building a business at the time, I didn't have the tools as an entrepreneur. I didn't know. I was like, heck yeah, I'm going back. And I know now, looking back, that the reason I couldn't grow my business, the reason I was feeling so down, besides the postpartum depression, but it was lack of knowledge and lack of a community, like the one we have now with Mommy Millionaire, right? And I did not know where to look for it. This was 7-8 years ago. The internet is not what it is today. Instagram, courses, communities, Facebook groups, that didn't exist. So I felt very isolated in my entrepreneurial world. And what I think that is relevant to the people that is listening to the podcast is a little bit of that gap from the time that you make that decision to the time that when you see other people be successful, there is a path. And that path has to do with, you have to know your why and you have to have a clear where you're going. But I think that identifying the blind side spots.
I want to stop you real quick because you brought up something very interesting. And so we talk about the why. And in network marketing, in the business, in the company that we're both in, the why has been very talked about. And that was the first place I ever heard it when I first got into network marketing is your why. Find your why, find your why, go back to your why. And for me, I think I had a hard time discovering what my bottom why was, meaning my core why, and staying connected to that. And people would say, well, when you're feeling down and unmotivated, go back to your what. Well, that didn't help. That didn't turn me right around and get me all motivated. Have you found the same type of thing, or what is your thoughts around that?
Yes, actually, yes. Because in my case, when I finally decided years later to leave bartending, my why is so big. I want to retire my husband. He's actually sitting here. And I want to retire my husband from bartending. But the resources needed for that are really, really big in order for both of us. So not only now I'm replacing my income, I want to replace his income, and I want to make more income than that. So I was really disconnected to that why. And something that has helped me is to identify the small whys in the middle. Identifying the little short term, because you don't get to 0 to 100 miles per hour if you're not going through the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? So in order for me to get where I want to go, identifying those little whys. But when I talk about the blind spots, even this time around, I realized, looking back, that I needed to really discover those blinds. I'm going to be honest. When I quit my job, I never thought that I was going to have all these blind spots that I eventually found, that were not letting me take my businesses forward. I had an idea. I had both businesses and everything. And even though I knew what I had to do, I couldn't take action.
Did you think kind of like, okay, if I just work hard enough, then it's going to happen, without realizing there's this outside work that has to be done first or as well? Like, what were your process in that?
Yes, I was like, well, if I hustle enough, it will happen. But I got to a point where for a minute, I was like, I don't even know what action to take. And I kept telling these stories to myself about like, maybe I'm not made for business. Maybe I'm not good for this. Maybe I'm not. And I had a feeling that I was like falling. I always talk about this feeling of falling because that's exactly how it feels in my stomach when it happens. And it all had to do with my idea of self-worth and or things that happened to me when I was a child, which is wild to me. Because I'm not scared of working. I am a hard worker. I am super positive. And I was like, okay, there is a disconnection between me taking the action and being positive and doing all the things that people say I have to be doing. And I'm still here kind of feeling like crap.
Yeah.
Like I could, and that's the gap that I feel. And this might not be everybody's reality. Some people jump in entrepreneurship, they get into a course and they're like, if I follow this course or these steps, boom, they're successful. God bless them. That was not my story. I couldn't figure it out. And that's how I actually ended up finding Kayla, because Kayla talks about all this crap that we have and the limiting beliefs and the loving yourself in order to be able to face all the failure that comes with starting a business.
I love everything you just shared. I really loved identifying the little whys to get to your big why. And that's all about have the vision, take the little steps in between. Because if anybody's like me, I know that in the past, I have gotten stuck on that big vision, and then you can get stuck right where you're at and you become immobile, and then you create chaos rather than action that moves you forward and all the things. So I love that.
Think about this. So let's say I'm just going to talk random numbers, okay? Like don't or random figures. So let's say my husband works 4 days a week. So it's not going to happen that from 0 to 4 days a week, one day I'm going to wake up and I'm going to make that kind of money to retire him, right? Now, for me, my more immediate goal would be, hey, I would love for him to be able to take 1 day off a month or 1 day off a week, right? That's really not a crazy goal. And now I'm working towards something that is very tangible, because in reality, to be honest, I do have an idea of what number we would need to make to retire him, but I don't even know how would that look. He doesn't even think that he wants to retire because he's like, I don't even know what I want to do. So in reality, that idea that I have, like, it's not tangible. It's a goal, yes, But there is so much growth that has to happen in the middle until you get to that ultimate why. But for me to be like, oh, my husband, like financially, he can take an extra day off a week. Oh, yeah, cool. So maybe eventually in that extra day off a week he's taking, he's like, oh, I have an idea for a business, or maybe I'll go to school, or whatever it is that he desires to do, right? Or maybe he'll join me on my businesses, whatever. But you cannot jump into that why, because usually it's so big that we cannot even know what that looks like.
Yeah. I loved what you're sharing there. And I was thinking about how this concept applies to so many different things in your life, whether you're trying to build a business or a side hustle, whether you're jumping into a new endeavor, whether you're parenting or trying to create a new habit. Like, oh, I have this vision of myself of how I want my health to look. However, my little whys in between, my steps in between, my cleanse days yesterday, or my workouts, like the just for today and working out.
By the way,
I know, I love that. I finished mine yesterday and I feel so amazing this morning. I love it. And like, it's the things the little incremental whys that we place along the way that will build to that big vision, that will build to that Katrina that I see, or that mom that we all see, or like that we want our child to grow up a certain way. Like, it's all, you can apply this in so many different areas of your life, but I think it's so important that we're talking about it now, especially as, moms who are creating their own businesses. It's not the typical 9-to-5 job. We're going out and making things happen, and remembering what it's like in these trenches, because we see that glory so much.
Yes.
And unless we're right there best friends with a person who's walking along and doing it, we don't see this stuff, and you don't hear it talked about.
And I think that also in general, we don't know what it takes, because we're so used to going into a job, going in an autopilot, just doing whatever we're told. This is, you take the steps, you do this, you get to work, you clock in, you do this, you do that, you get out, that's it. So when you're having whatever kind of business that is yours, it doesn't even matter what industry you're in. Sometimes it's hard to understand what are the steps to make that needle move forward. And that was actually me. Like, I was like, okay, I know how to take pictures, but that's about it. How do I get clients? How do I, So there is a confrontation there with ourselves, because no matter selling something, right? Unless you're in a job where you're not talking to anybody, not even like somebody in your own department, somehow you're selling something. But when you have your own business, all of a sudden you have to advocate for yourself and you have to advocate for your product.
Yeah. So what do you do to figure that stuff out, to figure out the steps? Your community, you get knowledge, education. What are you doing for yourself, or what have you done for yourself? Like, because if somebody's going, well, I don't even know where to begin.
So this is kind of, I'm going to be 100% honest with you. Something that I think that has helped my photography business grow is actually having a network marketing business. Because to be honest, it is the same process. Like, you still have to reach out to people. You still have to market yourself. You still have to create those relationships. And when I got in network marketing, I think that one of the biggest things that I found valuable was that there was somebody there telling me what to do, which is almost like having a job. Mm-hmm. But then you grow as a leader, and all of a sudden you're like, okay, I'll take it from here. Those lessons are the ones that, I'm going to be honest, I'm applying to my photography business also, which is crazy, because when I look back 7-8 years ago, when I first did photography and it was so hard, the reason why I think it was so hard is because I had no idea what I was doing and I had no community. And the second one, besides that's how I learned, it was in community. By finding community and surrounding myself with people that are in the same path that I am, I get to normalize, I don't even know if that's the word that I'm looking for, to make normal that process of failing throughout until you find success, or the little successes. Because when we went to Mommy Millionaire Live, for example, and all of a sudden, do you remember this when everybody was like, who's scared? And everybody lift their hand.
Yeah.
Who has self-doubt? And there were women in that room making $1 million a year.
Yeah.
And we all agreed that even if you're making $1,000 a month or $100,000 a month, we all struggle with the same thing. And it's just about taking that action. So it really normalized and put in perspective that you can do whatever it takes. You just need to do the work.
That was probably one of the most powerful things from that weekend. Walking in there as a woman who is the very beginning stages, working through this and figuring a business out, and looking at women who at the time, there were times I put on pedestals thinking there's no way this is the place for me. And when, they raise their hand, think I have self-doubt. I'm scared. I don't know.
Incredible.
Like all these things. That's why I love so much about bringing women on to share their stories, no matter what they're doing in life or where they're at, because we all have those common feelings no matter where we're at in our life at some point or another. And that can unite us and bring us together in such a beautiful way. And it breaks down so many walls for people who can get caught up in that thinking like, well, I'm too scared. I don't know enough. I can't, all the things. It breaks down those walls like, wait a minute. That person over there, that woman over there is no different than I am. She's had the same feelings I have, or she's having them even now, and she's successful. So why can't I do that too? Or why can't I relate to that person too?
Because I think it's learning to act in despite of.
Yeah.
And another thing that and this actually happens to me personally, like you and me, we know each other in person. So, I'm a very bubbly personality. I talk and talk. And people, the majority of the times, do not think that I experience self-doubt. They think that I don't experience fear. And I'm like, oh my God, like I need to start talking more about that, because I think that people cannot relate to me because they don't think that I'm having all those feelings. And I have them like everybody else, and they inundate me.
So with that, what is the glaring thing in your life right now that you are scared to break through that will take you to the next level of yourself? What is that chain that you have put on yourself that's holding on to you right now?
So I just went through like an amazing 2 weeks of like working on my clarity and my message and stuff like that. But I think the one thing that it was holding me back a lot, it was thinking that my businesses were not related and that I did not have a message. And when I realized that my message, yes, it is related to my businesses because that's how I make my money. But at the end of the day, it's about the message that I want to, like, if I would have to tell my child, if I would be dying right now and I would have to tell my child one lesson or a few lessons, what would I tell him? And I'm like, well, my message is so much more than what I do with my businesses. But parting from those messages, that's how I can run my businesses, because that's who I am. And that's what I want to bring to the table every time I serve somebody, either on network marketing or in my photography business.
So what's your message?
That you can pivot and you can change and you can reinvent yourself as many times as you want until you find what is your thing.
I love that. I so love that. There's a huge freedom sense in that.
Yes. But that's what I needed to hear, because I think that I was stuck on, I only been a bartender all my life. I don't know how to run a business because the first time I wasn't successful. People like, I don't know, they won't join my network marketing business because they think they cannot do what I do. And at the end of the day, there were all stories I was telling myself. I can be whatever the heck I want.
Yeah.
And I just need to work hard at creating that person and working on myself to be the next version of myself. and really impact other people through that process.
Yeah. I know that in my journey of life that I have put myself in this cell and not let myself out, thinking I had to do things a certain way, or they had to be like I have to make this job work. And this is all I can be, and this is all I can do, even though
Yes.
the dreams were going on in my head like crazy. And it wasn't until a few months ago, if I'm really honest, like it wasn't until a few months ago that I allowed myself to accept and embrace that I don't want a 9-to-5 job. I don't want to go back to a 9-to-5 job. I want to create what is in my mind and what God has placed inside me, and I can. And being able to embrace that and understand that it's okay to do it over and over and over again, and you have to pivot and turn. And the important thing here is trying different things. And like you said, through failure is how we find what doesn't work. And then that's eventually how we find what does work.
Do it even if you feel like it's not good enough. Because as you do it, then you're going to get to the point where you're like, oh, this is awesome. Because when I look back at my journey as a flair bartender, dude, it took me a long time to learn to flip bottles. I did not expect that it was going to be perfect on day one. So why would I expect that running a business or being in network marketing, it was going to take a day or two or a month, right?
Right. Yeah, and in our instant gratification world, we just want to throw it against the wall for it to stick, and boom, let's have the success. Let's make it happen. And the process it's in the process, it's in the journey, it's in the doing, and it's and it can be so much fun in that process too if we want it to be. It doesn't have to be hard all the time. And I just I loved it. I could sit here and talk to you all day long. Like,
yeah,
we could just
me too.
And change the world together.
Yes, well, because I think though that in that autopilot that we put ourselves, because we make good money, or you're in a job where you're making an amazing living, and all of a sudden you're like, well, I'm uncomfortable, but I'm not that uncomfortable. That was me.
Yeah.
Well, I'm in this job that, like, while I can still be here, I'm making this amazing money. I don't have to make any decisions. And I actually would tell this to myself because, I came from my first entrepreneurial trial where I had to make all these decisions. So when I went back to my job and I was like, I'm just going to stay here where I make great money and I have to make no decisions. And then, I went on my day off, nobody calls me. But then I was a freaking slave. And every time that I went to work, I was miserable, like literally miserable.
Mm-hmm.
Like I would yawn, I would look at the clock every minute. And it was even worse because I was putting on a show. I had a job where you had to be the energy and the ball of life for everybody. And I'm like, okay, here we go, And I was like, okay, how long can I do this for?
Yeah. I think we all deserve to find what makes our spirit happy, joyous, and free.
Yeah, and in that process, I think something very valuable, though, is to understand that while you are creating that, it's okay that sometimes it's not okay.
Yes. Oh, yes.
It's okay to sometimes feel like crap because something didn't work, or because you're doing the work, or because you are finding what works for you, or because you can't figure out your schedule, whatever it is.
Yeah.
It's okay that sometimes it's not okay. But as long as in the majority, it goes and it aligns with what you want in life.
Yes. Oh, I love that. Is there anything else on your heart that you feel you just have to share with the audience?
I would love to share that sometimes we feel like we're so stuck, and you're never stuck. We always, always, always have choices. We just don't see them. So if you're not seeing the choices right now, just look around you and ask yourself, what would make you feel unstuck? And see what choices there are around you that maybe you're scared of taking, or that undertaking, just because you don't know what's in the other side.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you so much for being with me today and coming on and sharing with our listeners your wisdom and your beautiful heart. I am so grateful for you. Where can we find you?
So you can find me on Instagram at Ati Grinspun, ATIGRINSPUN. I share tons of like health tips, personal development, and obviously personal branding. And if you want to see what's coming up for 2020 for personal branding specifically, it's going to be ATI.G.branding.
Oh, I love that. And I'll make sure to link that up in our show notes. Thank you again so much for being with us today, Ati. I so appreciate you. And you guys, if you loved this episode, please make sure to share it, take a snapshot, share it on social media, tag each one of us. Go head over to iTunes, leave me a 5-star review, and I cannot wait until we meet again.
Yes. Thank you, beautiful lady.
Hi, friends. If you enjoyed this episode of the Just As We Are podcast, it would mean so much to me if you would head on over to iTunes and leave me a 5-star review. Take a screenshot of today's episode and tag me at Katrina Lely on your social media. If you haven't already, head on over to the Just As We Are podcast community on Facebook and hit join, where you will get to join more of the Just As We Are tribe. And remember that no matter where you are on your journey, you are completely whole and loved just as you are.